Also in Europe, the insect has acclimated itself, therefore, soon also in the northern regions of the planet, it will begin its spreading of malaria. This should last until about the turn of the millennium, before the first cases will occur. Billy says, however, the malarial mosquito, respectively the Anopheles maculipennis, is accustomed to a warm or even hot climate. How is it, then, that this beast suddenly also appears in cold Europe? Quetzal says, due to the stupidity and negligence of the people, who import, from anywhere in the world, food and other commodities, in which insects as well as scorpions, spiders, and snakes and other creatures are often contained, and these then become reintroduced via the imported goods and then slowly acclimate, mutate, and spread themselves. Billy says, the malarial mosquito is also called the fever mosquito, and mainly appears from April to October in a malaria-spreading form. It is about 6 to 8 mm long and is a so-called labial palp. Its wings are scaly and its proboscis is, as far as I know, a little shorter than its entire body. The wings have small, dark spots. Quetzal says, that is correct. This insect is a mosquito that appears in forests and in open areas rather frequently, but it is rarer than other mosquitoes, such as the Aedes spp. And the Culex pipiens kinds. The Anopheles maculipennis is easily distinguished from other mosquitoes in its posture alone. It holds its body perfectly straight but at an angle to the surface. The other mosquito species, however, bend their heads and proboscises at an angle from their bodies and, at the same time, somewhat parallel to the surface. Especially in warm or simply warmer countries, the genus Anopheles has a great importance as a carrier of malaria, as you know from personal experience. The malaria pathogens are tiny spore creatures to stay in the salivary gland of the Anopheles maculipennis. For infection, specific developmental stages of the pathogens are necessary. These are transferred from the mosquito's proboscis and from its saliva into the bloodstream of humans, after which they then initially settle in the liver. Then, they attack the red blood cells and split every 1 to 3 days into new individuals who, in turn, attack new blood cells. Each time, a dangerous fever appears, which is well known to you. Also in Europe, malaria was formerly common, but then it largely disappeared. With the new invasions of the Anopheles maculipennis, however, it will happen that the illness becomes apparent once again, even if not to a great extent, at least not in the near future. What exactly arises from this, the time will prove. Billy says, and how is it with the larva? Quetzal says, it has no breathing tube. Flowing immediately beneath the surface of the skin, it whirls with its mouth parts that exist as suspended particles to itself. Billy says, aha, and to my knowledge, there are about 3 different forms or types of malaria, right? Quetzal says, that is correct. One is called malaria quartana, then malaria tertiana, and malaria tropica. Billy says, aha, and by which of these 3 types was I attacked? Quetzal says, fortunately, by malaria quartana, a form that has become rare, but through which you still have troubles to this very day. Since you were newly infected, before the healing process that Asketh bestowed upon you is completed, the illness was able to survive. But now, I will free you from this definitively. So come now. Billy says, I will. If you permit, then maybe later, I will still separately add an explanation of a competent form to your remarks, if I find one in a clever book. Quetzal says, that will be your concern. But now, come. Asterisk translator's note. The following is the explanation of a competent form that Meier found in a clever book. Malaria Italian, malaria, meaning bad air, feminine, collective name for the infective disease caused by the protozoans of the genus Plasmodium, which are transferred via a mosquito. Anopheles asterisk. Malaria tropica, asterisk, caused by Plasmodium falciparum. Malaria tertiana, asterisk, caused by Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium ovale, and malaria quartana, asterisk, caused by Plasmodium malariae are to be distinguished. Development cycle and transmission. See Plasmodia. Distribution. Despite the intensive control measures, today, malaria is spread worldwide in the tropics and also partly in the subtropical regions below 2,000 meters of elevation each year. About 100 million people fall ill to malaria and more than 1 million people die from it. Due to the increasing resistance of the Plasmodia against chemotherapeutic agents and the Anopheles mosquitoes against insecticides or through insufficient general control measures, the situation gets worse in many endemic areas. In Europe, there is an increasing number of imported malaria. See airport malaria. There is an endemic occurrence in Europe and the Danube Delta and in parts of Turkey. Clinical. A manifestation through the cyclic decomposition of erythrocytes, red blood cells, infected with Plasmodium. The fever that appears on this occasion repeats itself with malaria tertiana every third day, with malaria quartana every fourth day, and with malaria tropica irregularly. A double infection with a Plasmodium at different times or with different Plasmodia at the same time is uncharacteristic. Fever rhythms. See quotidian. The pathogenesis may be released through metabolic products, hemolytic anemia and hypoxia, as well as through autoimmune reactions of the host and capillaries disease, determined by the clumping of the infected erythrocytes. Diagnosis. Microscopic evidence of Plasmodium blood smear. Thick drops, especially at the beginning of the fever. Serodiagnosis. Indirect immunofluorescence test IFT. And complement fixation tests CFT, only for the affirmation of the anamnestic response to malaria. Malarial mosquito. Anopheles asterisk. Malarial Plasmodium feminine plural. See Plasmodium malaria prophylaxis. Prophylaxis asterisk. Feminine. English. Malaria prophylaxis, the measure for the prevention of a malarial infection, which depends on the development of the resistance of the Plasmodia in the various regions and under consideration of the contraindications against the regular intake of chloroquine, proguanil, and short-termed mefloquine, starting from 1 week before travel to 4 weeks after the last possible exposure incubation period, and depending on the necessary current chemoprophylaxis. Additional measures for the avoidance of mosquito bites exposure prophylaxis are mosquito nets, suitable clothing, insect-repelling substances, insect repellents. The large-scale battle against mosquitoes with insecticides is impeded by the resistance of the mosquitoes. Malaria quartana feminine. English, quartan malaria cause, Plasmodium malariae, a now rare form of malaria. Incubation period of 20 to 35 days. Symptoms: gradual beginning prodrome, febrile seizures every 4th day every 72 hours, and hepatosplenomegaly. Recrudescence after years is still possible up to around 20 years after the infection and even later in exceptional cases. Treatment: chloroquine. End result: nephropathy, immune complex deposit in the kidney. Prognosis: relatively favorable, as long as there is no renal involvement. Unfavorable in the case of nephropathy. Malaria tertiana feminine. English, tertian malaria cause, Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium ovale. Incubation period of 8 to 20 days. Symptoms: first 3 to 7 days, uncharacteristic initial fever, exhibiting attacks of fever every 48 hours every 3rd day, with 40 to 41°C fever and chills, critical fever after several hours, anemia and splenomegaly after a prolonged period.